Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Today we have Dave O'Hare on. Dave is the coach of the number one doubles team in the world, Rajeev Ram and Joe Salisbury. Welcome, Dave.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
So we're here in Montreal. Today is Sunday, so the tournament starts tomorrow, not till Tuesday, I guess, for the doubles players.
Yeah.
How are things looking for the team going into this week?
Yeah, I think we're excited. Obviously had a tough finish to Wimbledon. Didn't go the way we wanted, and almost the manner in which we lost in the semis is certainly not the way you want want the match to slip by. But I think we've regrouped. Rajeev played a few tournaments. Joe took a bit of time just to get his body in a little bit better shape. So I think we'll be excited to kind of hit the ground running and start the campaign for the US hardcourt swing.
Awesome. Yeah, I was going to ask why did Joe take some time off?
So he's been just managing this kind of prolonged back issue since Turin last year.
Okay.
So he's just been, we had a look at the schedule and,
just made sense.
Had a chunk of time to really try and address it and have a couple of weeks back at base, and so we opted to do that. Yeah,
that makes sense. So what does that look like from your from your perspective? At the City Open, you have Rajeev playing with Zeballos.
Yeah.
So how does that work? Like, I know you're typically focused on the team, but then you're focused on Rajeev, and I'm sure Zeballos has his own team there.
Exactly.
So what does that look like? So
even I didn't travel with Raj to Atlanta or to Washington. I was I'm living in London now myself, so it was just a little bit easier to be back with Joe and to have a bit more hands-on approach with him. With the whole team at the LTA. So it was just a great opportunity for me to be back at home, and Raj didn't feel the need. But it's funny because you ask about Zeballos. Initially, he was actually planning to play with Mektic for Washington, and then on the Thursday, Mektic bowed out. He actually had, I think, kidney stones. And he was in severe pain. So I don't even know how it came to be. I was under the influence that actually he was playing with Mektic. That was the whole plan. And then to do the week with Jack in Atlanta just for Davis Cup, just to get a bit of prep in.
Sure.
So that's how it kind of laid out. So I think that's why Rajeev would be excited, because it was a bit scrappy. It was a late finish in Atlanta with Jack, and then all of a sudden change of scenery, change of partner, only 1 or 2 days together, and then you're straight into the heat of the battle on the Tuesday. So because they played semis on the Saturday morning, I think, in Atlanta, and then so they so there wasn't much prep going into the match. So I think they'll be it'll be nice to have some familiarity, and that's what makes us. We really are a team.
Right. Yeah. And Rajeev and Zeballos lost first round in a tight one there in DC.
Yeah.
So this morning I listened to your conversation on the Functional Tennis podcast.
Yeah.
With
Fabio.
Fabio. So one of the things that you mentioned that stood out, I wanted to ask about, was you said that you like the term offensive more than the term aggression.
Yeah.
So I think I agree with you, but I want you to kind of elaborate on that. What do you mean by that, and what does that look like for doubles specifically?
So there's I think there's a really good framework, I suppose, and there's 5 playing situations. So there's serving, returning, both back, approaching, passing. Mm-hmm. And then there's 3 related scenarios with that. So offensive, neutral, defensive.
Okay.
And essentially it just ties more into that. So you're in an offensive scenario as opposed to playing aggressive tennis.
Yeah.
So just to have a bit more continuity, I suppose, in the terms. But I think if you really go down into it, where I find it a bit more powerful, having just reflected on actually what it means. If you meet an aggressive person, you wouldn't necessarily say that they're not generally a great characteristic.
Right.
But
you don't want to be aggressive all the time in your personality, right? You want to be flexible.
You want to be flexible, and I think it's just something that it just, as I said in Fabio's podcast, is just it's a bit loose. It's a bit like a bit off the walls. Not sure exactly what you're going to get.
It's almost a little stubborn to me. It seems like we're going to play aggressive today, no matter what.
It's
like,
and
what if it doesn't work?
Yeah, it's
right?
this huge umbrella term. Well, actually, what is? Whereas to me, offensive is a little bit more controlled and a bit more restraint, and maybe you're thinking a little bit clearer, and you're that little bit more surgical in your approach. And like that, maybe you're making a lot of mistakes when you're trying to be offensive. So maybe you might have to kind of like use your craft a little bit more, and play a little bit, whatever it may be. But it's not always going to be Route 1 tennis and serve and first ball,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like that framework of offensive, neutral, and defensive. I've started using that a lot myself over the last year or two. And one of the things that comes to mind for me is if you watch, do you watch basketball at all, the NBA?
Occasion, yeah.
A little bit. So I'm from Memphis, so we'll talk about that. But, so I'm a big Grizzlies fan, and if you look at like a box score of an NBA game, at least on ESPN.com, they have like the win percentage for the win likelihood for the game. So it's going like up and down. Like you're up 10 points, your likelihood is like 85%.
Gotcha, yeah.
And then it can drop down if the other team comes back and all this stuff. And I think that can that graph, I was a math major in college, so that graph can apply to tennis at a match level, a set level, a game level, and even a point level, right?
Absolutely.
So like if I'm serving, my likelihood to win the point might be like 60, 70%, whatever it is. And then if they hit a blistering return down at my feet, all of a sudden I'm on defense and I have to switch from offense to defense. So it does seem like the ability to know in any given moment, right? You're on offense, you're neutral, you're on defense, and then adjust accordingly.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's something that I would have seen, a huge amount. We play percentages, right? That's a big part of doubles. It's built into the score system. It's sudden death deuce, it's championship tiebreak. So really, where most of like the skirmish happens is over the kind of 2-3 intangible points, and generally that's where momentum is switched. So it can be as fickle as a shank return at the right time, and that can sway the match in your favor. So that's where the element of luck and albeit that the value of 1 point in a tennis match is only ever 1 point, but how that is perceived or how we manage the momentum after that, that's a big part of it. We can get a little bit down on ourselves. For us, we missed a few match point chances in the semis of Wimbledon, and then how did the fourth and fifth set look after that? It was only 1 point, but it lingered. Maybe, and we've all been there. I mean, it's part and parcel of it, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to go back. Tell us your story. How did you get started in tennis to kind of where you are now?
So, I mean, obviously tennis in Ireland isn't a huge, it's not one of our prominent sports. So just grew up with, I'm the youngest in my family, so I have 3 older siblings that kind of just grew up watching them. Mum would have been great, kind of just managing the kids, and I'd have been on the sidelines while they were doing their squads and lessons and whatever else, and invariably I was kind of bugging Mum to get out on court and have a little hit. So that was kind of my start. So I played quite casually up until quite late, I would say. It was only when I was 16 that I started to have maybe, I'd look to train 3-4 times a week and And that kind of just corresponded with a bit of interest from the Irish Federation, and they extended an invite to me to go out to train at the National Centre. And I was fortunate enough that I was able to, to avail of that, and albeit it's across Dublin, Mum was able to take me and everything. So that really opened up my eyes, and I started to really love it. And then at that point in time, I was really just focused on getting over to the States. So I never had a premeditated ambition to kind of go pro. I mean, I guess I always dreamt of it, but if I was being realistic or not, if I'd ended up in the position I'm in, either playing or now coaching, I probably would have said, yeah, right, like I'm just I'll get over to the States. So that happened. I literally had 4 great years at Memphis, and my senior year, the Irish team were a little bit thin on the ground, and one guy bowed out late with injury, so I got a call up to play doubles against Belarus. Had a brilliant match. Lost what was it? Anyways, 5 sets. We lost like 6-4 in the 5th, but had match point in the 4-set tiebreak. So played against Max Mirny, and brilliant atmosphere in Belarus, in Minsk, and had an absolute ball. So that was my first kind of proper experience.
Welcome to the pros.
Yeah, and obviously I felt like I belonged out there, which maybe I probably couldn't have said. I think there's something maybe ingrained in Irish sport that we're all quite modest about actually how good we are at something. So I think that's a big thing now, and I look back in my career, how often did I feel like I belonged? Not that much. That was one of my failings, maybe, in a little bit of my insecurities. But yeah, so then I kind of just stumbled over that, and then next thing you know, Joe and I, who were in college in Memphis together, we got a wild card to play the Bryan brothers' first round of the Memphis Open. So fantastic experience, and lost that match kind of 4-4, a couple sudden net juices, and
pretty good though.
And you're kind of thinking, God, maybe you could give this a go. So that was really it. So then at that point on, in that span of kind of 2 weeks, my whole outlook had changed as to what my future was going to be. I really enjoyed the lifestyle that I had in Memphis, and the people I met there, and I was very comfortable, and it was just great fun. So I was certainly looking at extending my visa to get an OPT and maybe to dabble into college coaching. And then after this, it kind of was like made sense to try and go play tennis and give it a whirl properly. So that's. So then played on the tour with Joe for 3-4 years. So we graduated in 2014, played until 2017. End of 2017, I got injured in 2018, and then that's kind of what had me sidelined. At which point in time, I was in 2018, kind of June 2018, I was hoping to get back to Memphis as the assistant coach, and that's ultimately what kind of took me from the tour, with a bit of a dodgy ankle and not so much support, and with Joe having gone on and excelled that year, he was kind of surpassed me ranking wise. So I didn't have a partner, and for a large part of the joy I got out of tennis was playing with Joe, was just kind of the relationship that we had together. I did have a lot of fun playing with Luke Bambridge, but again, he was in the same boat. He had a pretty, he won Eastbourne ATP, so he kind of just catapulted again. So I didn't really have a set partner, and I knew I kind of wanted that. I didn't want to jump around. That was one of the big philosophies early in my career, was just kind of believing in the team and building a team, knowing what Joe can bring to the court. And so if I know what shot he's most likely going to hit, then I can position myself or place myself best in a way to win the point or whatever. Whereas if there was a bit of uncertainty in what my partner was going to do, then I wouldn't be able to be the most effective off the ball with my movement or whatever else. So then that fell through. The assistant ended up not leaving Memphis, and then I got to New Zealand, playing some club tennis in New Zealand. And then when Luke Bambridge heard I was there, he flew me to Melbourne for the Aussie Open in 2019, and that's how I kind of sidestepped on the tour. So it's kind of just, it's not maybe the traditional route, and it kind
of. You were in New Zealand just playing. For a club team?
Yeah, I did my pre-season in 2018 before I got injured. Was down in New Zealand. A good friend of mine, Sebastian Levy, had arranged a fantastic pre-season down there. I had an absolute ball with a load of friends. One of the best pre-seasons I had, just in terms of weather and organisation and setup. It was world class. So I had made some good contacts the kind of month I was there. And yeah, then Seb reached out and was like, "Listen, do you want to play some club tennis and come and do a little bit of coaching?" Because he was starting to get his academy up and running in Auckland.
So then Luke calls you and says...
So then Luke heard I was in Auckland and flies me to Melbourne for him. He was playing with Johnny O'Mara at the time.
Yeah.
And was like, "Listen, I'm looking for someone for the year. Would you be interested?" I said, "Yeah, why not?"
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great story.
Yeah, so kind of just stumbled over these little obstacles one at a time, and it just kind of aligned.
Yeah, you never know where it's going to go.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to take the opportunities when you get them. So I want to talk about Joe and Raj real quick. What do you think they do better than anyone?
Well, I think their chemistry on the court is what makes them so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
I think what each of them lack, maybe the other has in abundance. So it really is a great marriage of styles.
Yeah.
And it's certainly, when you kind of talk to we actually had this discussion, there's actually not many kind of team coaches out there. A lot of guys have just their individual coach. And but it's good, it's great to have, I kind of coach three people. I coach Rajeev individually, I coach Joe individually, and then the team. So we still do a little bit of individual specifics together, because what Joe needs isn't necessarily what Raj needs, and vice versa. So we tend to kind of do that, and then. But yeah, I think there's good transparency, there's good communication, there's good trust in the team, with other coaches that are involved as well.
Yeah.
And I think we're all keen to just get better. I think that's maybe one of the resounding things. Even Rajeev, now with the prolific career he's had, he's still highly motivated and feels he can get better. So I'd say, that won't change until the day he decides to put the racket down. I think the day he feels like he can't get better is probably the day he puts the Babla up on the shelf. But I don't think that's coming soon, so we're in luck.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's the great thing about doubles too. So I when you say chemistry, I love that answer. And I think one of the things, at least from watching, that I feel like they do probably better than anyone is switch.
Yes,
I've seen several times, and you've obviously watched them a lot more than me, but so often returning, somebody will serve tee to Raj on the ad side, and he has just this stretch forehand, and Joe will just switch.
Yeah.
Like he's like running for a forehand. I'm like, man, I never see that on a return. It's not even a poach switch or anything like that.
Well, it's just it's simple.
They just feel it.
Yeah, they feel it.
I mean, they make it look so easy, but you don't see that often.
You don't see it, no. It's not too bright. But it makes sense, right?
It makes perfect sense.
If someone is at the net, is Raj going to stop and then try and cover his territory, or can he just keep his momentum going that way, and he's got a forehand?
But it requires that chemistry, it seems like.
Yeah, but that's practice too, I think it's been, even funny enough, even today, we were practicing with Lloyd Glasspool and Harry, and Lloyd hit a good first serve to Rajeev, he hit it to Joe, and Joe hit a good tee serve. Joe hit the return, and just Rajeev, and Rajeev kind of took a while to get going, just because of the past 2 weeks with Jack and Horacio, that he kind of wasn't in the flow to that natural switch. So it's just practice as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. What's one thing you'd like to see them improve? What are you kind of working on with them right now?
So a big thing that we're working on in that is actually just our positioning in the wall, just making sure that we're more solid in the middle of the wall. So we call it the wall when let's say Joe's hit a first volley and he's come in and they're both planted the next ball after that. So kind of ball 3. Just making sure we have a real
they're
strong.
both at net?
They're both at net. A real strong presence in the middle. That's one of the things that we're working on, and everything from that is just kind of making sure we find the balance and we keep it, touching.
So what led you to work on that? Is that something I know in the Functional Tennis podcast, which we'll link to in the show notes for everyone listening? You mentioned that y'all use a lot of analytics and dartfish.
Yeah.
So did you find that they're like losing more at the net when the opponent goes through the middle?
Yeah, just on a few occasions, just having a little bit more clarity in actually whose ball is what and what people's territory is.
Yeah.
And we think there's a few occasions that, because there's going to be overlap, right? So so the ball that we're talking through is like, let's say if Rajeev is on the do side at the net after Joe served to the juice side and he's coming in from regular, let's say.
Yeah.
Hit a first volley cross and the ball is coming back through the middle and Rajeev is at the net, a service partner.
Forehand?
He can take forehand or Joe's backhand. So it's just having a little bit more clarity in that position, because in an ideal world we would like Rajeev to get that ball because he's more of a threat closer to the net and he can put it away. So it's a more offensive volley as opposed to then Joe, and again, if the ball has a bit of quality on it, it's dipping below the net, and by the time it gets to Joe, then it could be difficult. So it's a small thing, and we're always learning, even when you're on the back of the practice court, and they're always kind of shooting ideas. I think this, and you think that, and they're always,
just kind of collaborating together as a team to figure out what
exactly
how do we solve this problem best?
Gaining further clarity. So we do look back. We have a lot of data at our disposal, which is fantastic, and just because you play the same teams often, so you can kind of see what they're looking to try and do differently, and so it's not one size fits all. It's we're really kind of constantly keeping up with our norms, and then just tinkering with a few little bits and just getting further clarity.
Yeah, for most teams. Most of the listeners are just club level tennis players, right?
Okay.
So it's a different level. But what I typically recommend, like you said, in that situation, it's best if Rajeev can take that because it's forehand volley, he's moving forward.
Yeah.
And I typically tell people that, at least from the baseline, if you're hitting against that wall, to attack the backhand volleys, which I feel like I'd love to get data on this at the club level, but I feel like almost every club player, like their backhand volley is significantly weaker. Yeah. Do you find that to be true at the pro level as well?
We would say, our big target if we're at the back would be the right hip, because backhand volley you can shield yourself, like you can cover the most volume with that area.
So it's that forehand kind of jam.
So that forehand jam would be target 1, and then stretched either side would be 2 and 3, and then last would actually be backhand volley, just because the guys are used to the balls coming at them.
Yeah,
I mean, particularly
the backhand volleys aren't a weakness like they are for somebody like me, probably.
It's all relative, but I think that's one thing. That's one thing that a lot of teams maybe practice is those offensive hits, but it's just quite hard to get any real purchase on the ball that's at your right hip. Yeah. If someone rifles one at me, I can just be here and fend it off and just use my. A lot of people are very good at it, and they can actually, counter that with a good angle and turn the momentum of the point in their favor. Yeah,
definitely. So I keep referencing this podcast. So another thing I heard you say on there was after a loss, you often. I don't know if blame yourself is the right word, but you're always thinking like, oh, what could I have done differently? Yeah. So I wanted to ask, if there's a specific match that comes to mind, an example of a win where you played a big part and you thought to yourself, they couldn't have won that without me. I wanted to kind of spin that and put it in a positive.
Well, I guess it's just I feel like I've done a good job if after the match we have a debrief and they agree with certain scouting. Like if it's on this certain ball, he likes to pull it line, so cover line more. So it might be something counter to what we usually try and do. And I say, trust me on this one, cover there. Or it could be a spot on the serve. And if on the big point,
you see it, you're in the player box and you see it happen, you're like, yes, I knew that.
I mean, of course, if we're waiting there and we middle a good return, then I'm taking a little win for that too. But yeah, I mean, I'm always just, again, I've said it on the other podcast, I'm very fortunate to have a good relationship with the two guys, so I really just have utter joy in them winning. And I don't, there's no real ego in it for me to be like, yes, I did it, and
Yeah, no, I get that. I do think, it's you can call it ego. It can also just be like a confidence thing, right? And it's fulfilling to like see the work pay off.
Absolutely,
right?
I know that I absolutely do. I think, when you do, which it's not just me. Of
course,
there's a lot of team and physios and the people that tag these matches in Dartfish, I wouldn't be able to do half as good, a quarter of good as a job in terms of scouting and prep, if I didn't have this at my disposal. So there's a lot of people at it. But there's certainly, it's very gratifying when all the pieces align and you feel like you contributed in your way. But it could be just taking whatever, just running to, even in the semis of Wimbledon, Joe's like, I didn't even hear what he wanted, but he wanted like something in the locker. So I'm just going sprint into the locker. I'm getting protein powder, just everything that's in there. Just energy gels, t-shirts, sweatbands.
Which one do you need?
This is everything that was in your locker, one of everything, So just trying to be an asset and help in any way I can. And it doesn't have to be just in a tennis capacity. It can be anything and everything.
Yeah. What does game planning look like for a big match? Let's say it is the quarters of a Grand Slam or semis of a Grand Slam. Do you sit down the night before, the day of, and go over the scouting report, or what? Yeah,
typically we would chat the night before a little bit about tactical stuff about our opponents. Most of it would be kind of player led. And then I'll chime in, so I'll watch kind of 3, 4, 5 hours of matches or points of our opponents. And
you'll watch that, or with them?
No, I'll watch it and just try and pick up whatever anything I've noticed. So we'll kind of have all the norms, but then it might be, you kind of filter through what it might have been tactically against that opponent that I was watching. So maybe they'll serve differently to Raj or Joe. So I'm kind of never really giving anything concrete. But again, we're just trying to force our opponents into doing something lower percentage.
Sure.
So if we can win a few of those skirmishes, those 50-50 battles, because really that's what we're, if we win. If we win 48% of the points, but we win the right points, sometimes we're still winning the match. You know?
Definitely.
So that's kind of really where my attention is focused. So it'll be led by them, and then I'll kind of just butt in and be like, oh, just be sure of this, and maybe one of these tendencies. And
is there a framework y'all go through? Is it like, okay, let's talk about Raj serving first, then Joe serving. Well, that's talk about returns.
That's all predetermined, So generally we like it for Raj to serve first. But it's not.
But I mean, you'll go through like the game plan for each of those games.
Like,
all right, here's the game plan when Raj is serving. Here's the game plan when Joe is serving.
we would like to do. So we'll talk high percentage plays on the 30-all points, on the deuce points. If the deuce guy is playing it, we want him to, he's a bit more comfortable pulling his backhand line, so maybe we'll go IT and Joe, you go left, cover the backhand line. So we'll have our kind of concrete plays laid out like that. So in the moment, there's no, and we'll all agree on that, there's no thought that goes into it. We know what we're going to try and do. But again, if they're feeling a particular serve on the day, all the scouting goes into they'll maybe play the full first set like it, and then after that they may need to adjust and pivot and adopt.
Yeah.
Someone could just be feeling their backhand return on the day, so I might have scouted for their backhand to be a little bit worse, but if they're just nutting everyone out of the center of the string, then maybe we'll start to serve a bit more in the forehand.
Yeah, that makes
so
sense.
it's all quite malleable. That's why I don't want to give like anything that's so concrete, because I don't want them to stick to it. And often they don't want to hear a lot about it too, because they want to rely on their instinct as well. So they're obviously, the pair of them, fantastic tennis players.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be a little bit general in what they feel, and then I'll chime up with something that I would deem important, that just so they're aware of it.
And then, so that'll be the night before, and then the next day, maybe they'll go for a hit around.
So then, it depends what time we play, but we'll give ourselves plenty of time. Generally, we will, hit kind of 2.5 hours before, just a little 30-minute hit.
Are you working on specific things for that opponent, or just warming up?
That will have been done if we have like a day off. That would be more that, and there might be one or two things, if it's like the odd return, that we might want to make sure it's sharp, that either the guys are feeling, or they've got a few more reps in practice, then we'll do that. But it won't be as detailed as that. I think it's just your general kind of 30-minute dubs warm up and just feeling loose and grooving a few strengths, and that's about it.
Okay. And what about a post-match analysis? What does that look like? Do you, like, if they lose, the big semifinal at Wimbledon, I imagine you go back and look at the match.
We've done, so we'll do, again, this is where we're fortunate, we generate a few of our own reports. So I'll get clips of both the guys returning and elements of, if the technique was bad and what we should look for, and elements of when it is good and when it's not good, when we're jammed or when we create space, and the outcome. So that would be done, and generally that's how we did it for Wimbledon, because I think all of us were maybe a little bit lost for words after the match, so we took a little bit of time to kind of get ourselves.
Will you go over that with them, or not until next time you play that opponent?
No, we'll talk about the match. We'll generally debrief after every match that evening, and we'll talk a lot. We call it our performer, so everything that we like to address, everything that we're in control, how is our effort and energy. So we'll do that, and then we'll draw up some tactical things, and the guys will kind of say a few elements that they're not happy with, and what we might need to address kind of going forward ahead of the next match, if the match has gone our way and we got the win. Got it.
Okay. So I want to get into some specific strategy questions.
Okay. God, you put me on the spot here.
Some of the early ones are pretty basic. So you win the coin toss. Do you serve or return first?
It depends. Depends on the sun, depends on the wind. Generally, we try and serve first. I think there's nothing.
What's the scenario where you would return first?
Sometimes it's not our choice. But if we want to,
if you won the toss, though,
if we wanted a certain end, then maybe we would defer, and then we could do it that way.
Okay. Got it. So that would be on like a particularly windy day or a sunny day or something?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. But typically you're serving first?
Yeah, typically, yeah. I mean, I think it's nice to put a little bit of scoreboard pressure.
Yeah.
So generally, that's one of the cornerstones of our game, we feel, is just sort of taking care of our service games. And
so I want to run some numbers on this at some point, but I personally, when people choose to return first, I think it's crazy. I think it's like, why would you not want the odds to be up 1-0 after the first game at 60% instead of 40% or whatever the number is?
Sometimes.
But I get that there's like scenarios.
Yeah, sometimes if it's, I don't know if it's like a little bit rushed, or things haven't gone according to plan, and it's a bit, the match before you has ended shorter than you thought, and you're like, oh geez, I'll just give myself a game to actually like get into the match here.
Yeah, it's hard for me because I was a math major, so I just don't. I get that people operate by feel more than I do, but I don't. So I'm like, I just don't even think about it. I'm just serve. But I recognize that there's different things for everybody.
Yeah.
How do you think about I versus regular formation? When I see Joe and Raj always, I reg, first and second serve.
Yeah.
And especially on second serve, I feel like before first serve, they're always talking, right?
Yeah.
But then second serve, they'll just ask, I reg, and then they'll switch. How are they thinking about deciding that?
So again, I mean, a lot of this is you want to create uncertainty in your opponent, right? So so we don't want to give them the same look. So a lot of the time, it's just a mix-up. And then if it may be if Raj is feeling particularly good from I on the day and you feel like he's hitting his spot better, then he'll call that for a second or a first. So that's kind of how we do it. But sometimes it'll be I on first, reg on second, reg on first, I on second, and that maybe ties back into what we're feeling. What we're feeling tactically on a big point. Maybe we're feeling a reg wide on first serve to this particular opponent on the deuce side, but on second we want to force him to hit maybe he pulls across his body with the forehand quite badly, and I don't know, whatever it may be.
Yeah, and just use the angles of the court.
And just use the angles of the court.
Yeah, that makes sense. So in general, when you're planning for an opponent, do you feel like it's more important to attack the opponent's weaknesses or play to your own strengths? So if you like your forehand return, for example, but I like my wide serve in the deuce court, is it more important for me to just say, even though I like my wide serve in the deuce court, I need to serve to his backhand? How do you think about that?
Good question. Yeah, I mean, it depends. Generally, we would say we would back our strengths against. We would if Raj is stepping up to the line with the right intent on a serve, then I feel like that serve is going to be of good enough quality to win the point. So I would say generally we back our strengths if it is serving to the better return wing of our opponent. Yeah, it's interesting. I ask this question a lot, and I get different answers from different people. Really?
I had Bruno Suarez on 2 weeks ago, and he said to attack the opponent's weaknesses. But I think that he also said that kind of ties into his game because he doesn't have any huge weapons. He was like, my strength is to be able to attack any weakness, right? So, that makes sense. But Raj has like such a big serve with Joe at the net. Like it's like, here I'm going to hit my favorite serve. Good luck. So,
I think that there's a bit more. I don't know. I mean, you can live and die by the sword and that a little bit more. At least you kind of went down doing something that you've tried and tested and you're okay with. And if they hit a great shot, well, you hit a great shot, but you're going to have to hit a great shot. I think that's the important thing that how we would approach it.
How do you game plan for a lefty? I know there's a lot of lefties on tour. How do you, for Joe and Raj, and then just in general, how does that change the doubles court if you're playing against a left-handed player?
Well, I mean, taking this obviously the benefits of being a lefty server out, but I think you could maybe look at someone going to the outside. Maybe we could look for Raj to use the chip return a little bit more against the lefty, because then if he goes over the net player, the lefty's coming in with a backhand volley. So just a few little tactical things like that, but generally we'd maybe try and have arranged points with the lefty on the build-up, so they've seen a lefty serve at least on the courts, so it's not totally foreign. But again, the guys have playing the same guys week in, week out, so they know what to expect. I think this is where it's a little bit different at this level, and they've played these guys so much, whereas a lot of people listening, maybe they haven't played against their opponents, or if they're playing like 4 or 5 league matches or 5-0 league matches, and they're like seeing new faces the whole time. It's actually quite rare for these guys to see a new face down the other end.
Yeah.
Which is an advantage that we have for sure. So they know what to expect going into the match.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's see what else we have here. So serve strategy. What's your kind of philosophy on serve strategy, and if you can break it down a little bit into first versus second serves as well?
So we would say we're kind of spot servers, I think, is the identity that we have as a team. So we're really going to try and kind of like attack the lead, and we would rather lose on our terms, kind of to tie back into your question. So even if we double fault with the right way, and they win the point, but with us in charge, as opposed to hitting a somewhat tame second serve and then roasting a forehand. That feels quite good for our opponents to win that point.
Yeah.
But we can live with actually double faulting with good intent and going for a good spot.
Yeah.
So I think that's again kind of a way to try and manage momentum as well a little bit. Just even if the points that we lose are still kind of on our terms, then I think that bodes well for us.
Are you playing a little closer to neutral if you get a second serve? So back to that like offensive to defensive?
It would depend. I mean, if the guys are serving well, I think they would back themselves to be offensive still and trust that they're going to hit the spot. If the conditions don't allow, or they're not really feeling that good on the serve, then they may then be a bit more conservative. But generally, I think on first or second, we're trying to take control of the point and play on our terms. I'd hope that the guys, and if one of them does serve slow and into the slot, when the server's partner turns around to go and high five, in our case, our service partner is going to say that one was a little slow or that one was a little slot. They'll be communicating about that on the court.
Okay, got it. Yeah, that makes sense. That's that's something that I've thought more about the last year, is like, because at the club level, players aren't talking between every point. Yeah. It'll be a lot of signaling, right? So we'll call like T body wide, and then I'll poach or stay or fake. Yeah. But the speed of the serve has so much to do with how that return is going to come back, right?
Exactly.
So I'll call a wide serve, but what I've wanted to know more and more over the last year is like, I want to know if you're hitting that wide serve like the short angle or with more pace. Yeah. Because then I know more, if you're hitting with more pace, then this forehand return might be coming back with a lot of pace. So I got to be ready for that. Yeah. Or if it's a short angle, I might delay my poach or, things like that. So the pace and then the spin as well, both I feel like are huge factors.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what about return strategy? I feel like Raj and Joe are both pretty good lob returners as well.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Joe uses it in a little bit higher frequency, I would say. Okay. But yeah, I think that's again one of our strengths is we're quite dynamic in that sense.
Yeah, and to be able to adjust.
Yeah, and we can call on those skills if required. Certainly, I think when Rajeev gets a hold of the ball in the sweet spot, it can go through a lot of people. So that's certainly intimidating, and that's the how we envision Raj playing his best tennis. He's doing that, and that bodes well for Joe then, who's maybe up as returner's partner, and then he can use his strengths to kind of influence the point. And if something does come back, but it's found the server's shoelaces on the first volley, then Joe's got the athleticism to kind of cover a large chunk of the court and maybe hit a volley winner.
Yeah. What type of team would you recommend they play 2 back against? Like, in what scenario is that happening? Is it just a super aggressive server's partner, or is it...
if they clean up very well on first serve,
Okay.
we would generally say maybe if, and it's gonna I think nothing's concrete, right? But if we're not getting many looks, then we might just change up the formation and stay both back on first and just show them a different look, just for the sake of, if things haven't been going our way and their service partner is cleaning up everything, and
Got it.
then we'll try and get into a few more rallies maybe and stay back and look to lob or whatever it may be.
Okay. Yeah, and that was my next question. What type of team would you typically go to the lob against? Is it usually against like regular or eye, or just an aggressive?
Both can work, obviously. But yeah, I think if either guys are stretched and they know the lob is coming, and they can switch, I think more often than not we're maybe lobbing off first serve.
Okay.
And then looking to be maybe a little bit more offensive and try and dictate on second. But then, on occasion, it's if they're expecting that, and either Joe or Raj do a little, there's creative license out there too, and nothing is rigid in that sense. But yeah, I would say, if people are, if we're not getting many good hits on the return, then
maybe
we might
mix it up with the
lob, and then we'll be both back, and then we'll extend the point out, so we've maybe better chance to work our way into the point. But if it's all one-way traffic for the serving team and we're returning, we'll try and change something and do something a little bit different, just to get them guessing and change the perspective or rhythm, or
Yeah, that makes sense. So just 2 more questions and then a couple of kind of rapid fires.
Okay.
So I think you touched on this a little bit earlier, but what changes during a tiebreaker or kind of a pressure moment strategically? Is that a time you typically recommend to be more offensive or defensive, or go with your go-to plays?
Yeah, go with our go-to plays, I would say. And again, the serving side of things, trying to stick to our spots and attack the lead, or not be conservative.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing worse if you're a little bit tame and you lose the point anyway, then that kind of hurts double.
Yeah.
So and that can change the momentum. So we'd almost rather double fault, trying to do the right thing, than have our opponents actually feel really good having hit a great shot.
Yeah. How do you think about risk in that scenario? So, like, let's say, for example, the scouting report says serving in the ad court, we serve T and play I, and the net player moves left. So we're leaving that alley open because the forehand return in the ad court yields a lot of errors. But when they do connect with it, you're in trouble, right?
Yeah.
And you're down 30-40, and it's like, okay, this is your go-to play, but if they do hit it, if this is that 1 out of 5 where they connect, then you just got broken.
Yeah.
How do you handle something like that?
So again, I guess, leading into your original question with if it's a tiebreak, at that point in time, we've obviously we've hit plenty serves.
Yeah.
So we as a server, we kind of, if we have ultimate confidence in that play, I think it's a mindset thing.
Yeah.
I think if you toss the ball up fearing that, I think there's a greater chance of that actually coming to fruition and them connecting wholeheartedly. But I think if we step up to the line with the right intent in our serve, then we back our serve.
Stick
in
with
that
it.
moment. Yeah.
Who is the best doubles, the best returner on tour for doubles?
I mean, everyone has stages of being world class, but I would probably say, although we haven't played Mektic and Pavic actually much this year, but I think when I wasn't with Joe and Rajeev when they played each other a bunch last year, but certainly the matches that I watched, the semi-final of Wimbledon last year that I watched, those guys can be seeing the return, both of them really well, and then that can build a lot of pressure. So I would give it probably to those two. I feel like they're good return. I also rate. I feel like Grenollers can latch onto a few and make you play that extra ball from time to time.
I was watching him practice earlier. It was he was connecting on a few. Yeah,
exactly. So I mean, but again, a lot of the singles guys that are kind of drifting into playing a little bit more doubles, there's certainly a bit of fear factor in them because they're maybe a little bit more carefree and not too concerned with outcome, and they can have a bit more of a swing, and that's dangerous for sure.
Watching like Fognini play doubles, it's like he lines up on a neutral forehand, and you've got to just be like, this could be trouble.
Exactly, yeah. So I think there's a little bit more of that where dubs guys are a little bit more aware of that.
What about the best server?
Raj.
Yeah,
I give it to Raj.
Yeah. All right, so a couple rapid fire questions, and then we will hop off here. What's your favorite tennis book?
Tennis book? Years ago, I guess it's maybe one of the only. I should probably revisit it, but I read that Inner Game of Tennis. Which maybe gets a lot of shout out on here.
It does.
So that was kind of my first tennis book, I suppose. I need to do more of the autobiographies and maybe do, I don't know, Rafa's and Andre's and all that kind of stuff. I actually haven't done too much of that.
There's some good ones, but Inner Game of Tennis is definitely.
What else? What comes highly recommended?
Open was good. Andre's book. One of my favorites is String Theory by David Foster Wallace.
Okay.
So it's just like a collection of his essays that he's written on tennis, and he was a competitive tennis player growing up in, I think, Indiana, but one of them is an essay on Federer. There's another one where he talks about this time he went out and practiced in, I think it was Indiana or Iowa, somewhere in the Midwest, and he got caught in the middle of a tornado, and he gets thrown. He gets lifted off the ground and thrown across the court into the windscreen.
Jesus.
And then, I don't think he passes out, but he gets thrown into the fence, and then the fence collapses, and then he has to get up and go to his car and leave.
Wow.
And I don't know if you've ever read his writing, but he's one of the best writers of all time.
String Theory, okay. I'll add it.
That one's fantastic.
Okay.
There's a lot of good ones out there. I need to put together a list of all the ones that have been mentioned on the podcast. But what's your favorite non-tennis book?
Oh, God, good. I mean, right now I'm doing, I'm into kind of a little bit into philosophy.
Okay.
So there's a guy, I can't single out, but I enjoyed all Malcolm Gladwell's books.
Yeah, he's great.
He's great. I also really enjoy The School of Life, who is, I'm blanking on the author's name.
School of Life?
Yeah, it's, that's it. But the founder is Alan de Botton. Yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah. So I've read some of his stuff.
So he's great. Mm-hmm. I'm actually reading what I'm currently reading at the minute is Letters from a Stoic. So Seneca.
Yeah.
Just kind of got into that.
Nice.
This kind of coincided with when I missed when I didn't get my visa, and it was kind of like the first time I felt like I ever lost. There was no tournament the next week. There was no visa application the next week, and I kind of delved into a little bit of philosophy, and quite liking Marcus Aurelius Meditations as well is another good one.
Yeah, all those are good. I like the Stoic work. How can we make pro doubles more popular?
I think just show a bit more. I think if we can build a little bit more and get a little bit more on TV, because as we all know, the people that are listening to this, we all play it. I think it's very fan. I think good doubles can be really easy on the eye. I think it's fast pace. I think there's, obviously high level singles is fantastic when you see the guys going toe to toe and contending for Grand Slams. But I think there's a lot of very fascinating points that unfold on the double side of things, and a lot of people go, it goes unnoticed really because it's just not on Tennis Channel or on the TV. So I think first thing is get people exposed to the taster, and I think a lot of people like it. It's quite advantageous that doubles is kind of 90 minutes. It's just like a great taster, and I think it should be sold as kind of a nice little appetizer maybe, and fast pace and rapid, and I think fun. It can be, instead of the boys just slogging back and forth. But I mean, credit to the singles guys and the athleticism that they bring, and the heights that they're bringing the game is outstanding. So I totally recognise the skill and what goes into that.
I think that the best doubles points are potentially more entertaining, right? Because there's so many more moving pieces. So it can be like a ridiculous angle, but then they get to it, and then it's a lob down the line, and then another lob coming back, and it's like there's so many moving pieces. So it seems like if they had some sort of highlight reel at the end of the tournament of the best doubles points, like people would be like,
I think the ATP are slowly recognizing that. I think there's a bit more of a following for it, but I think it's great to see people perform under pressure, and these pressure moments in doubles happen quite a lot, and I think it's quite exciting to have people like the underdog, and I think underdogs win far more often in doubles than in singles. So I think upsets and people playing great against the number one seeds or against the number one team in the world. I think that's fantastic for the sport, to kind of show the depth. I think of late in the last kind of 20 years, the growing population have just been accustomed to four names and them winning everything, and credit to them. I mean, that's an unbelievable achievement to been as successful as they have been, but I think it's quite cool that most people just associate like good players to guys in the top 10, and I think there's a huge amount more talented players than just that, and even in the you see the rise of these great players even in the challengers, and you can go and watch a lot of those for free and see the future stars of the game, and that isn't even kind of heavily attended at all either.
Absolutely. I have more fun personally, like at Indian Wells or a tournament like this, on the smaller kind of outside courts, watching from closer. I'd much rather do that than sit like row 40 and watch Rafa play singles. Like, I love watching Rafa play singles, but like today I was watching Granollers and Zeballos and Arevalo and Roger play a practice set, and I was able to stand like right there on the baseline. And just as a fan, like, that's so much more fun to watch for me anyways, because you get it from an up close perspective.
Exactly. I totally agree. I think what these guys do is exceptional, and some of the reactions and some of the points can be hugely entertaining, and the spectrum can vary so much, I think maybe more so in doubles than it can in singles.
Definitely so
there's a lot of variety, and as you say, there's a lot of variables and moving pieces that kind of has us entertained.
Awesome. So any final requests for the audience before I let you go?
Any final requests? Just watch more doubles, I suppose. Support Joe and Rajeev.
There you go. All right, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks Dave for coming on.
Thanks for having me on, Will. I appreciate it.
All right, we'll link to everything in the show notes, and I will talk to you next time. If you want to become a smarter doubles player and start winning more matches, then join the Tennis Tribe Doubles Strategy newsletter. Every single Thursday, I'll send you a new doubles tip or tactic that you can use in your very next match. And when you join, you're going to get a free guide on how to play with more confidence and start dominating at the net in doubles. My name's Will. I'm the founder of the Tennis Tribe, and over the last 5 years, I've worked with players at every level of the game, from USTA 3.0 players all the way to Division I college programs, as well as some of the top 10 doubles players in the world. And on Thursdays, with this strategy newsletter, I share that knowledge and advice that I've gained over the years with you. So to sign up, you can go to thetennistribe.com. And again, you'll get that free net play guide when you join.